In this episode of the Effective E-commerce Podcast, we're going to be talking about how Ariana designed and got her product, Vino Cards, manufactured she got it manufactured in China, and the step-by-step on how to do that. Save a lot of money by manufacturing in China. So first off, Ariana, thanks for coming on again for this little mini-series.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and for people just tuning in, I'm going to do probably like a 5, 6, 7-part series with Ariana, who is my girlfriend and who I taught the passion product method to. She basically created a product that didn't exist, that's something that she was passionate about, which is wine, and maybe more passionate about getting friends together. So she created this product, step by step how she created it and launched it on Amazon. So yeah, this is the second episode. Last episode we talked about how you got the Kickstarter. And I talked about some of the different strategies I used as well for Performance Nut Butter. So welcome back, I guess.
Thanks.
So I guess let's get started right down to it. A big part of what we're going to talk about today is how do you actually design a product? And it's the same process for designing a private label product on Amazon, all that kind of stuff. So go back with me, and obviously I was there for it, but let's talk to the audience a little bit. How did you get this product designed? You know, you had an idea in your head of, in the car, we had this idea of we're going to create wine flashcards. Then how did it get designed from there?
Yeah, so we basically had maybe a general vision of what should be on the card, and maybe like for sure a flashcard being one side and double-sided.
Double-sided, yeah.
And so I think we wanted it to be very simple to follow, something that doesn't feel too just crowded with information overall. And so I think when we talked about having the taste, smell, some notes about the wine and where it originated from, like those key things that someone should know about a wine was really important to put on the card. And so kind of coming up with, again, just the easiest way for someone to follow the card, and we wanted to spread it out perfectly on them. And I think from there it was just letting the designer kind of there's ideas.
And this is why so for everybody listening, I'm gonna ask Ariana questions about it and kind of fill in the gaps, because there was a lot of gaps in not in a judgmental way, but there's a lot of things that we did in between. One of the first things that we did when designing this product was we took a piece of paper and we just wrote out by hand what's it gonna look like front and back.
Yeah.
Then the next step was we actually created a mock-up in Photoshop. And for people watching the YouTube video, I'll put up some images. If you're just listening to the podcast, obviously, you can't see the different mock-ups and everything.
Well, to create the mock-up, though, we came up with what we want on the card first. Like, it was a discussion. And then we went into actually, like, noting it down.
But we had to draw it so we could see it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
you also have to think about it and talk about it and then put it on.
That's my point, though. It was a process. It wasn't just like, hey, designer, go do this thing. It was this iterative process of...
creating the mock-up.
Yeah, creating a mock-up, because we had an idea of what we wanted it to look like. And our version of the design was terrible. I made it in Photoshop pretty quickly.
And then when we printed it out, it was just...
Oh, it was so bad.
So bad.
But when we gave it to the designer, he was able to turn it into something absolutely amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions again still. If you were to have to find a designer without me, and we'll talk about how we found our designer, what would you have done? Any ideas?
I feel like I would have come across that site that we used to find a sommelier, Upwork, I
believe
it was.
Yeah,
I feel like through Upwork I could write exactly what I needed, and someone would reach out to me, and I could see if they're a good fit for creating or helping me create the project.
Totally agree. And so Upwork is one strategy that I recommend. Another one is Fiverr. If you're really cheap, I don't recommend Fiverr for most people, but it's very cheap to do it.
Why?
Fiverr? Why not Fiverr? This is why it's great having you here. Because you pay $5 for a design, and with design you pay for what you get, you get really. Sometimes every once in a while you get like a diamond in the rough, but usually you're gonna get someone on there that's just gonna make some very low quality thing. Because a lot of times people will hire designers because they don't know how to use Photoshop, like the basics of Photoshop. So you'll get someone that just makes a very bad logo. That's not always the case, but you might have to hire 20, 30, 40 people before you find one that's actually good. So it'll end up costing close to the same.
That's interesting,
Yeah. I recommend 99 Designs. That's what I did for Performance Nut Butter.
Yeah.
So the logo for Performance Nut Butter was a 99 Designs competition. It was the $800 package, so it was pretty up there. And then I ended up hiring the same guy that did my logo to do the package design, to do everything. And so right now, when we're talking about a designer, we're talking about a designer that he made our logo first and then made the actual box design, everything. So let's go back to getting the logo. Talk me through a little bit. Let's talk through a little bit of that. What were some of the challenges with getting the logo design? What were some of the, some of those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, a challenge is with the logo, making it very clear what the product is.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't necessarily just want to put a wine bottle because it's not a wine that I'm selling.
Right.
It's a tool for wine tasting. And I think we looked up, or maybe just simply Google imaged some ideas just to kind of spark the creativity a bit.
Oh yeah.
And then from there, I knew that at least put a wine bottle in there just so that, again, at least it is like wine related, but I made sure to include one of the cards with the bottle so we could show it on there as well. And at least in that case, it's like, oh, what's this card with the wine bottle? And then just making it clear our name and then a little bit of what the wine.
So specifically, when you were talking about going through Google Images, what we did is we would we looked at a bunch of other logos, not to copy the logo, but like to figure out what kind of design style we like. Do we like a modern, a class? I don't know, all the different types of design.
Yeah.
And on 99 Designs, as you're going through doing a new project, they give you a bunch of examples of logos, and you can pick your favorite ones. We then showed that to the designer, and he said, hey, this doesn't make any sense because half your designs are modern and the other half are this. What style do you want for the logo? Because it's not just what do you like, it's what style do you want. And you might like two very different kind of styles, but you can only have one logo, basically.
Oh yeah, that's true. We did go through a lot of iterations of it.
So another thing I wanted to bring up that we've since kind of forgotten, do you remember, let's talk about hiring your friend and hiring friends as designers. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was an acquaintance from college.
Acquaintance, yeah. What lessons learned did you have from that? And you want to talk through the process of that a little bit?
Yeah, let me try to remember. I guess it was mainly posting in the launch group and on my personal Facebook where I was, working on the next step of designing the logo.
Yeah.
And someone had reached out to me, and I believe they studied graphic design in college.
Sure.
And so she had reached out to me and said that if I needed help with anything, let me know. And so I took her up on that, and I sent her some of the ideas. And I thought she did a really good job as far as taking, the color scheme that I wanted and kind of the more modern take on the logo. But it wasn't exactly the instructions that I had given as far as where I wanted the design to go.
Yeah.
And so she took a little more creative freedom with it and kind of incorporated what, she had learned from her previous work and everything, but I wanted something completely different. And so we still ended up paying her for her time of the ideas that she gave us, but we ended up going a different route.
So one of the things that Ariana left out that I want to be very clear about is it wasn't clear up front exactly how much. I don't remember all the details.
Yeah.
Basically, we said, hey, we're willing to spend up to X amount of money, I think, and she said, oh, well, it actually took me 5 hours to do all this. And we said, that's cool, but we're not going to pay you for that much time. We said, well, isn't that, I think, true?
Something like that. And it was also we had given instructions of what we wanted.
Yeah.
And to kind of go with that, but gave us something completely different. And so it's almost unfair to pay for time that we didn't ask for.
Right. Yeah. And that's ultimately what it came down to. Yeah. The good thing is we were in a position where we didn't want to, we just wanted to see what ideas she had. I think we said, her rate was, let's say, $100 an hour. And no, I don't even think it was that much. Let's say it was $50 an hour, maybe $50 an hour. And we said, okay, could you work for an hour and a half and come up with some sketches? And after she came up with some sketches, we said, we're not that interested in anything that you have. To be honest with you, I didn't really love the style. And I wanted to go with my friend, the person that we ended up going with. I wanted to go with him. And ultimately, when we finally said, we're not going to go with you, it's like, oh, well, I actually spent 5 hours total, so you owe me $250. And we're like, too bad, because at that point, we were also in a good position there because worst case scenario, we could just walk away and say sorry. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to pay her for what we agreed upon. So that's just a little warning. Just be careful. Be very clear with your designer I'm willing to spend this much money for X, Y, and Z. If you pay them by the hour, there's conflicts of interest there, because then they're going to spend more time on things. So that was one warning story.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely okay to say no, that you're going to go a different route. You know, don't feel like you're tied down to one thing. It's good to get different perspectives on what a design can look like.
And just this is a totally off topic, but I wanted to mention this before I forgot. I tried to do a YouTube video on this, and it was actually trying to be like a really well done YouTube video. I still might release it. It was going to be a story, like walking through our day and like kind of doing the steps along the way. But the audio got totally messed up because I've been trying to do more vlog style videos. The audio got totally messed up, and there were some other issues with it. So in the meantime, this podcast will stand for that. But let's get back to the design stuff.
Yeah.
See if I have questions. So 99 Designs, Fiverr, Upwork. But so how do we find out our designer so we don't have to wait anymore?
Through you?
Okay, no, it wasn't just through me. It was through my buddy James.
Okay.
So it was a designer that my friend had, and I actually highly recommend that. If you can find someone that you're like through your social circle that's like a verified designer, and you can see some examples of their work, and you know that they're easy to work with. Yeah, because so my friend James, he's done a lot of design work, and he said this guy is the best, which means that he's probably easy to work with. He does good quality work.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening, definitely try to find it through your social circle, or you can join the Facebook group. It's Travis's like Amazon and Shopify e-commerce entrepreneur group, or whatever it is on Facebook. You can join that group and ask in there, because there's a lot of people in there that have experience working with designers. So what other issues do you remember, like with the logo? Like, walk us through that process. So we showed him examples of logos we want. We gave him a general idea. What was the iterative process from there? Then what happened?
From there, it's just playing around with the edits, really. I mean, trying to get the correct color for the wine in the bottle, trying to get just the color scheme overall.
So this is interesting, because as we're going through this, I'm realizing how different my mind works and yours in some ways. Because to me, like, the next step was he gave us 3 different styles of logos.
Yeah. Okay, that's true.
I mean,
but those are edits. Like, those are different. Like,
no, but to me, that's an important point. Is we told him what we wanted, and our specific designer gave us 3 separate logos and said which one of these most closely represents what you want, and we picked one, and then it got into the edits, and some of those edits included things like, tilting the bottle a little bit more, changing the color of the wine inside of it, maybe some fonts. And the words,
definitely, yeah.
Some little things like that. So that was some of the back and forth, and that was just to get the logo done. And remember, the logos, it's crucial because it kind of, the entire rest of the design is based around the logo.
Mm-hmm. And it just propels the project in general. It's what people are going to see up front.
And we're explaining it to the designer in a way that the designer understands, which is graphic design, what the vibe of this product is.
Yeah.
From there, we got, I think the next thing was a card. We had a card created. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a card. Yeah.
And talk about that. So we told him, hey, I think we sent him a mock-up of the back and the front, the information we want on the card. And for people watching the YouTube video, I'll show you what my mock-up looked like. And then maybe we'll show next to it what the final product looked like.
Just so different.
So different. So what did you think when you first opened that email? And you got the first mock-up that the designer made.
Yeah, well, it was really exciting because it was our idea, but brought to life in a much more professional-looking way.
Yeah.
So, huge
totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different.
But it was great because I think he understood what we were trying to go for. Because the only thing that he changed was the color, and the background of it, and the placement of things.
Well, the font. He changed everything.
And the font, but it was still the kind of flow of the card that we wanted, And so he really understood that, like, this is what's on the front, this is kind of our vision, this is on the back, and he just brought life into it.
Oh yeah, no, he did it made the product what it is for getting the designer. And just to put some numbers on this, the logo would have been about $250 if we bought it alone. But to get all 52 of the cards and the box and the logo was $2,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's basically he created a lot of the product for us. Ariana did all the research for the information that's going to be on the cards, but the real heavy lifting was done by the designer.
Yeah, and the best thing about the designer too is that they understand all the different iterations that might need to be made, to accommodate our vision as well. And so the person we worked with, he was so patient with me with us just because we had so many little things, like little corrections. And also we had to double check the spelling and making sure everything was correct. So there was a lot of there were several months into it where it was back and forth.
It took some back, and well, we had so much, because Vino Cards is so text heavy, there's going to be some back and forth. I actually, though, his core design, we almost didn't change at all. Like the actual card design. So I think he was probably pretty happy to work with us in that regard. So let's talk about looking back, what were some of the mistakes? And next we'll get into the production side of things, like finding the manufacturer and all that. But what were some of the mistakes with the actual design itself, if any, that come to your mind? I have some, but I'll let you.
I'm sure you do.
I always do.
Let me try to think. I'm sure there were a lot. I mean, it was... Oh, actually, one thing I want to note about the process of picking the logo is also getting feedback from people in our launch group.
Right, a good mention. Yeah.
And so that was actually really helpful for me too, because some of the things that I chose, I didn't realize how it looked like to someone else. And so the people in the launch group kind of provided their feedback, said, what colors might look better. And overall, that was incredibly helpful.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the passion product formula, or whatever I'm going to call it.
Getting people excited.
Yeah, it's getting people excited, making them part of the process. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
I know for Performance Nut Butter, getting people's opinion on the logo helped me make my decision so much more. But also, like I said, it made them feel like they were a part of it. Do you remember any specific things that people said about your logo?
No, they liked it overall. I think some things were the wine inside the bottle, the drawing of it looked a little stagnant, where it should be kind of more flowy. That was an interesting thing that I overlooked, but then corrected. And then as well as maybe the placement of our card, because we have the little Vino card on the logo as well. The placement of that, little things that really kind of what looks good to the eye of the person buying it. So
sure.
Yeah.
And of course, is another shameless plug, I am going to be launching January 8th the Passion Product Formula course. It's going to be a beta version, so I'm only going to be accepting 10 people. I'll talk more details about it later, but it's going to come with a bunch of group coaching calls, some private one-on-one calls, all kinds of stuff. I'll talk about it at the end of the episode if you're interested and want to stick around. So one of the other things I noticed, we had some mistakes with spelling, and we hired someone. So we went to Upwork and we hired someone, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, to look over the cards. But there were still some mistakes. I mean, what would you do differently if you were to do it over again?
It's tough because I reviewed the cards like crazy, but just getting more eyes to look at it.
Yeah.
Apart from myself. And getting several people to look at them, and maybe someone who kind of specializes in
spelling and proofreading.
Yeah, so
that was
the next round.
That was a big thing. Another thing was the cards themselves, the color was a little bit off from what we wanted it to be. I still think it looks good though.
I think we've gotten good feedback about it because we wanted very white, just pure white color, just to make it look very modern. But then someone brought up the fact that if it's going to be used around wine tasting and snacks and pairings, and so it's possible to get kind of fingerprints on it.
Right.
So I go back and forth. I don't know.
So I think let's transition into, we've been talking a lot about the design, actually the graphic design, but an important element of designing your product is how it functions. So one thing we got held up on was how the box is going to look. And now it's so obvious that the box opens like this. For people watching the YouTube, you can see it's basically called a hat box. So the top comes off. If you're listening on the podcast, you can just go to Amazon and search for Vino Cards and you'll see it, and then buy it and leave a review, of course. Just kidding. But if you wanted, that'd be great. But there was a lot of different styles that we could have potentially done, and this wasn't the intuitive way for us to do it. We went through a lot of different ideas and design topics, and do you remember how we came up with this idea?
Yeah, well, we were searching things on Google of other game sets.
Before that, even.
Even
Because we'll
before?
talk about the process. Because we struggled for a month or two before we figured out what it would be. Do you remember? So I'm going to put up some. Okay, so one of the parts of the process was, well, first we just tried to come up with something, and we
Yeah.
both had some ideas.
Yeah.
Though I think I had an idea like this at one point. We'll talk about that later.
Well, yeah, you reached out to someone who was working, who works on having already a set of.
It was Sam.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
because he sent us like 3 different examples.
So the person that ended up being our manufacturer in China, we told him what we were doing, and we said, hey, can you, what do you think would be good for this project? And that was advice from James, actually. You're gonna hear my buddy James' name a lot in this video. James said you should reach out to him and see what he has to say. And so I'll put up on the screen a few different options, but it was just, there's tons of different ways for boxes to open. He did have a quote unquote hat style box, but it wasn't as pretty
I think it was
as ours.
hinged.
Yeah, we had like hinged ones, we had all kinds of different ones, but it wasn't like, this just looks so much fancier. All right, so now this comes into the next piece of advice that James gave me, which was, do you remember the next piece that we finally, figured out what to do?
To buy someone else's product?
Yeah, I mean, he said,
See it in person?
yeah, like look at other products, basically, that already exist. And so there was this game called the Questions Game, which I'll show on YouTube, that had the same kind of style. There were some differences though. The cards were a lot thinner, and we knew with our cards we wanted them to be thicker.
Quality.
Yeah, really high quality, which also works out well because the Questions Game has 100 cards, and our game, I guess it's a game, only has 52 cards.
Yeah.
So we wanted really thick, high quality cards. And I think, so one of the lessons learned from that, for me at least, is if you're going to be designing something, try to do it on your own at first. I think that's great. But if you hit a roadblock, look at things that already exist. You're not the first one that's created something. Whatever you're creating, there's other people that have created similar things out there. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very important thing when thinking about production. I don't know, what design, I should say. What other things come to mind, or like struggles that we had with design, if anything?
I mean, mainly just like color matching, keeping everything in order as far as like card numbers and very little things.
Were there things that were
things.
you thought were going to be really hard that were easy, like the copper foil and stuff like that? Was that all pretty much what you expected, or?
So I had the copper foil idea for the logo. Actually, a friend helped me come up with that idea too. But, the only thing I didn't expect or forgot about was just the extra costs for that. It's like, oh, I didn't know that a copper foil thing would cost more, and
right.
Significantly more,
right.
Or different colors and styles.
Yeah.
All has a cost to it.
Oh, absolutely.
So
there were a lot of different struggles that we had when working with our manufacturer, including like how to get it shipped over and some things that we're actually still kind of in the process of working on, but we'll talk more about Ariana's story. As I mentioned, on January 8th, I'm launching the Passion Product Formula beta version of the course. It's going to include so much. I can't stress enough. You're going to keep hearing me talk about how much I want everybody that ends up joining it. I really want them to succeed. I've been working really hard with Ariana, obviously, not just because she's my girlfriend, though that's a big part, but also because I want to prove out this concept. I really believe that if you create something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, something unique that didn't previously exist, you have much more opportunity in the world. I think there's so many people out there trying to sell courses on BS ways of making money online. So many people trying to sell different courses or share knowledge, even if it's for free, on ways that are kind of outdated for making money and that can be kind of soul-sucking. I think the benefit of this is Ariana's created a product that she's really proud of, that she gets to show off to people, which is awesome. So this course is going to include 6 weeks worth of group coaching calls where me and you and the other 9 people in the group will get on a call, and you get to ask all the questions you want from me. It's also going to include 2 private one-on-one sessions, obviously the course itself. And just to make this a ridiculously good deal, I'm going to bundle in every single course I've ever released. And I'm not going to talk about the price just yet. I want to wait and surprise you guys with how cheap it's going to be, because I really do want at least 10 people to join this, but it's going to be very affordable. It's going to include all three, like I said, all three of the courses I've done, which is the Facebook ads course, the AdWords course, and the general e-commerce course. It's going to include lifetime membership into a new Facebook group. There's going to be a private Facebook group that I'm really going to try to build out. This is the course that I want to do, that I want to be known for. I want to be known for creating, helping people create their own passion products and creating, and by that it just means unique products. So that's my long ramble. January 8th, it's going to go from January 8th to like January 15th. It's going to only be about a week until I close this thing. So as you're making New Year's resolutions, this year, make your New Year's resolution to finally stop worrying about money and start, creating something that you really like, which will create money for you. Guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and make sure to go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win a free one-on-one consulting session with me. And when you do that, not only does it help me out and the podcast out, it's going to help you out, not just to win a free one-on-one consulting session, but also the more reviews we get, the higher quality guests we can get. I don't know if I would have been able to get Ariana on here if I didn't have as many reviews. But anyways, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye now.